construction. This picture right here, we got a mobile tower crane right here behind this truck and trailer flying RTUs up on one of the office buildings I was working on this summer in Live Oak, Texas, Alterman HQ. Pretty cool project. So let's jump into it. My name is Steve Kapir, of course. So first, I want to start with some of the historical use of cranes in construction, where we kind of got our basis and foundation for these pretty common sites, at least in our area, the Greater Hill Country. But so the historical uses of cranes in construction, we have archaeological records of cranes being used back into the 5th and 6th centuries before Christ. Here we have some, this is on the bottom right hand screen. This is like an ancient Roman crane. See, kind of the same idea here. You have a big, kind of a lever, and you have some wheels that turn it, and they can, hoist or lower items. You see the guy down here on the bottom, he's pulling a string. It's either could be like an ancient tagline, or he's communicating with the guys on top to start pulling to use that pulley. And then jumping over here in 1883, the first hydraulic crane, or in 1838, the first hydraulic crane was invented by William Armstrong. And they didn't have hydraulic fluid then, so they're actually using water to create the hydraulic pressure. And here's a little section cut of it on the bottom left of how it works. Here at the bottom, you kind of got the little pump room creating the hydraulic pressure. You still have a pulley on top with ropes, and you still have that big lever with another pulley and a ball and hook attachment, of course, so you don't overpull. And then this is kind of the basis and foundation of our modern day hydraulic crane. It's kind of the same idea, just scaled up and improved with technology over time. And up here on the top, we have a actual large scale kind of photo of how it would have been used back then. They're kind of building these aqueducts and breezeways, and those blocks aren't moving by themselves. I don't care how much manpower you throw at it. You're going to need some kind of heavy equipment. This is what they had back then. So it's really cool that we can see the foundation for what we use almost every day, a regular item. And back then it was probably a mind-blowing piece of technology. It still really is, especially when you dive into the details of it. And then let's jump into the present day crane, something we're more used to. Here we have two main subcategories for construction cranes today. We have static and mobile. So your static cranes, like I have here in the background, are they're anchored into the ground. They use a predetermined path on site. So that swing radius, underneath the boom and everything, which is super important. We'll get into that later in the presentation. That's predetermined on site. Everybody knows, hey, the big old crane here is going to be swinging this way and this way, never under. So stay away from it. We'll jump more into the safety precautions when you have cranes on site. And then they're usually on site for a pretty lengthy duration of the project. You're not throwing up a tower crane for a couple of days or a week or two. It's going to be months, maybe 50-60% of your duration. So from beginning till we're just doing interior finishes, all the loading bays, and let's say a tower, like a skyscraper, all the windows are closed up. We don't need the crane anymore. We can't use it. Everything on the roof is falling to the roof. So that's usually going to be a pretty long duration on your site. And then jumping into another aspect is going to be the mobile crane, which I have some more experience with just in my construction experience. And they either traverse by tracks or on wheels. Is Alamo Crane. I wanted to put a picture of them in because they actually did our mobile crane services on my project. So they're a local, hometown hero kind of deal. Alamo Crane, very good. That's a wheel. That's a mobile crane that traverses on wheels. You got the truck that drives in, and then when the operator drives up, he hops in the cab and goes to work. And then here we have one in the middle on tracks, which you don't see. I haven't seen too common. You'll see more depending on your weather conditions and just like terrain. They're probably, if it's really muddy and stuff, they're gonna want to bring out the track crane. And the great thing about a mobile crane is that you can hire it for short durations. So if all you need a crane for is for a week to pick tilt wall panels, you can hire them out for a week. If all you need them for a day to fly RTUs, like we did, like a whole day from 8:30 to 2 o'clock, just flying RTUs, you can do that. It's very cost efficient. I'm not having to budget and overhead for having a tower crane on my project for 70% of the time. Let's say it's a year project. I don't want to have to budget, and I don't want to pay for a crane for 7 months if I only need it for about 2 weeks combined duration, right? So it's cost efficient for us. It's very good for the crane service because they can get more jobs because they don't need to stick a crane out there for 7 months, for example, keep that going. And Just because it's a mobile crane doesn't mean that the operator is any better or worse than a tower crane guy. They're both very, we'll get into it later. It's a very highly skilled, high risk field. So these guys and girls do what they do very well for a certain reason. And then jumping into safety, which is one of my favorite aspects of it, just kind of running through this before we get into details. Some of the crane safety involved, you're going to have pick plans. You always got to fill out an AHA or a JHA before any construction activity can perform on site, especially pulling, loading, flying things up with a crane. Crane specific items, we're going to have the pre-pick safety stand down, and then I'm barricading the area around the crane and under the swing radius, because never under. It's a huge policy that you'll see a lot of general contractors, and it's just a good safety concern. Never be under anything, regardless of it, if it's a tower crane or a boom lift with a guy in it. Just don't be underneath it. So, excuse me, running into detail for the pick plan, your material lift plan is going to consist of the qualified personnel, such as your operators, your riggers, your signalmen, anybody else that the trade involved, usually, and what we're picking up for them, signal persons. So that pick plan is going to consist of the type of crane, the personnel I've spoken before, the type of rigging you're using, signal persons, the crane swing radius, so that never under, and the boom angle as well is very important. How high is that boom being extended? Is it going to be out? Is it going to be straight up? Job or activity hazard analysis, like I said before, before you could even quote unquote wipe your butt on site, you better have that JHA or AHA filled out in the morning or right when you get on site. So that's a standard, but that does apply to the cranes. Just because they have a pick plan doesn't mean they can skip the JHA or AHA. And then pre-pick safety stand down, super important. You're gonna have a safety stand down with the crane crew and the trade responsible for the material being moved or equipment. So for my example, and on that, when we flow those RTs with that mobile crane, once we got everything set up and barricaded, we have a safety stand down with the general contractor, the crane operator, the signalman, and in this case, this was Brandt Mechanical and Plumbing that need to fly these RTUs up. So the Brandt guys there telling them what's good, what's what. The crane operator, the guys, if I can't see you, you can't see me. I definitely can't see you. But most of the time, I can't see you. You talk about struck by hazards, never under. The sequence of events that's going to happen. How the signals are going to work. All the radio men, and that's a very good safety stand down to be a part of. And everyone is documented in signs as witnesses or what company. So there's a lot of legal ramifications if something goes bad on the construction site, especially with the crane. So everybody's documented no matter what. And then we want to use a lot of, plus, adding on to barricading around the crane under a swing radius, you're going to use taglines and material equipment. No one's just sticking their hand up and getting caught in between stuff. We'll see later on in the presentation. I got a couple good videos on the rooftop POV of how it looks when you're landing these things, right? So in the picture background is a little safety stand down. This wasn't a pre-pick safety stand down. They're a lot smaller. This is just a regular, Monday morning, 11:15 safety stand down. And then here's a little better close up I was talking about in the previous slide about pick plans and load charts. So one thing that's super important that you're going to hear a lot going down the road, if you especially go to commercial route, is a critical lift. And critical lifts are determined by the crane's load carrying capacity. About 75% or above the crane's capability. The lifted capability is considered a critical lift. And for example, the company I work with, if you had a critical lift 75% or above the crane's capacity, it had to be signed off by the VP. But an easy way to mitigate that and kind of having to basically run things up so far up the chain. We're in San Antonio. I don't know. Where's the guy in Baltimore care? Have to deal with this. So just get a bigger crane, usually what you're going to do. And the companies will tell you oh, it's a big critical lift. Wait till we have a bigger crane available for you to kind of avoid all that paperwork and headache and risk and stress involved of having a crane picking up more than 75% of its capacity for everybody involved. But our critical lift plan or pick plan. So here we go through load date, location, load weight, the type of rigging being used, the type of crane, the ropes, the lift plan checklist, other over here, sometimes you're going to have persons involved, and here's a critical lift plan and a load chart. So we can see boom angles, the swing radiuses, and then load chart's going to have, be included in your pick plan, and you're going to have the type of rigging again, the crane, your pre-lift checklist, kind of considerations right here is 75%. Critical lift, contingency plans, which is kind of like an extra safety, emergency action plan. And then, this is the most important. This is like your Bible when you have you're flying stuff up on the roofs of buildings or into buildings. What's the pick plan and the load chart looking like? We need to quality control these things. Everyone needs to see what's going on, make sure all the information lines up, cross your T's and dot your I's. That's why we have pick plans and load charts. And then the equipment and personnel you're going to need for, something like this is your slings, chain hoists, shackles. Most important, in my opinion, for anything is the permits for transportation and operation. This big mobile crane can't just go down the road like you're taking a Civic down to the grocery store. So you need a lot of planning ahead of time. That's why we have good contractors like Alamo Crane that do all that for us, and we're doing that for you because as a general contractor, I don't care how you get here, but you need to get here legally and insured. So those permits for transportation and operation, you can't do any kind of lifting work without having a permit from the city or in your respective city. So for us, it was Colo, City of Live Oak, to move these cranes and stuff, especially because where our site was, it's by a public, a private elementary school. So, we don't want to piss these parents off. We have to work with them, not against them. Another important part is obviously going to be your operators and your crane riggers, the people that do the work and know how to run the machinery in a safe and calculated way. So over here, I just want to highlight a lifting work permit, and it would be filled out by either your subcontractor or you, depending on what company you're working for. And that's submitted to the city, and they, approve it or deny it. That's up to them. Over here, just have different kinds of rigging and stuff. So you have the choker, the endless, an eye to eye, or the multiple leg sling. This is what we see a lot common, especially if you're moving long material or heavy, like square objects, rectangular objects. You're going to be using, a multiple leg brittle sling. Here we just have some of the shackles and the steel cable shown for connecting to lift points for the said object. Sometimes you got to throw a chain hoist in there, just in case, depending on your maneuverability and route access for work. And then just want to get into some of these rates and how much it costs, because that's what we're really concerned about. So the rental rates I'm showing here for mobile hydraulic cranes and some accessory services that may be needed. So going through some of the accessories you need are going to be like, maybe you just need an operator, maybe you need some radios, maybe you need crane mats, or lift plan. Maybe you need someone else to do your lift plan for you because you just got too much on your plate, or you don't have the right personnel for it. Pilot escort vehicle, very important. Jumping back into the last slide about permitting for transportation and operation. That's very good. Mechanic, transport. Maybe you don't have a big enough truck to move the crane, so they can provide a truck. That's like a Mack truck, like an 18-wheeler semi truck. And then here I have some of the hydraulic crane rates and stuff like that. Let's jump back over here. Tilt wall rigging, very important. Maybe you got the eyes, but you're not too confident you're rigging up. Spreader bars, storage, crews, operators. You can there's a lot of accessories, and I think supplemental items with a crane that people kind of overlook. So that's why I want to throw that in there. But let's get into meat and potatoes and crane rates and stuff. I love the mobile cranes because, like I said, if I only need you for a day to pick panels and another day to fly, RTUs, and then everything else we can use the 10K forklift. I'm just going to use the forklift, right? So, if I need, we can jump into hourly rates and the minimum hours and see those road permits I was talking about before to move the things cost some money. Looks like, the biggest one is a $120 road permit to move 165 ton with operator and oiler boom. That's a very big crane. So, $450 for 4 hours plus $120 road permit. It's a lot cheaper, I can tell you, for that. For let's do 8 hours. So pick panels all day, and there's this tower crane for 7 months, 2 months, a month, and then some other miscellaneous kind of accessory options. Maybe you need a driver, maybe you don't have any rigging personnel. Crane equipment available. They're probably talking about shackles, slings, hoists, things like that nature. So it's very cost effective when you look at the grand scheme of things, especially if you're on a large scale project where you need a big crane. this right here, these rates are really just a drop in the bucket when you think about the big picture. So it's a very cost effective way to work. And then some of like, where's this? Well, I don't see any cranes. Well, yeah, you do. So you gotta look around. So in our own backyard, we have a huge array of uses in Texas and the Hill Country area here. On the top left, this is Bobcat Stadium expansion. I think Spalglass is doing that job. They got a big hammerhead tower crane right here, and every day it's in a different position. So they're working that thing. I couldn't snag a picture of JC Kelly, that crane flying up rooftop material for them because they demobbed that crane when I was making this slide. But the JC Kelly buildings, the Hilltop Dorm project, they demobbed their crane, but about this time last year and the semester before that, like fall 22, they had two big old tower cranes, tilt wall panels flying stuff up, and now Tower Dorm project is it's not hidden, it's there for sure. So they had a big tower crane over here. We have Alterman HQ. This is one of the buildings that we flew RTUs on. Look at that boom angle right there. Just want to highlight like that was fully planned and noted. You'll see in the next video I have on the rooftop angle up here. You can just see he was maybe about a foot to 6 inches off that coping cap. So there's some real operators. They know what they're doing very well. It's very cool to watch these men and women work at something they excel at and enjoy. And then this construction is tilt wall panel construction. So very big thing going on here now. And the rigging is very important. If you see these about 3 to 4 pulleys are all rigged in a very, calculated, safe manner. When these things come down, it's not fun at all. Thankfully, that didn't happen with us, but it's precautionary measurement. And then you can even use them to pour concrete with a concrete hopper in this building to pour that level 3 deck up here. They actually used a concrete hopper on a crane, on a mobile crane that day, and got it done. So there's a lot of cool projects going on, especially in our own backyard, but across Texas, of course. You go down to Austin, they're building, DPR's got that 75-story tower building, going to be the tallest one in Texas. They got, I believe it's 2 or maybe even 3 tower cranes around that building just to, work around that Austin area. And if you think about a swing radius and boom angle lift plan, how critical it is, think about there. You got buildings, people, line, like there's a lot of infrastructure already in place that they're having to work around. So, more props to the operators and people that are planning ahead of time. And here, I just wanted to show you, let's pause it real quick. So here's my radio man / signaler. And my man Carlos right here, Brandt. Here's an RTU. We have shack on 4 lift points. We have shackles and eyelets bolted into the bottom of this thing. I believe they're usually one-time use too. They try not to use these things too many times, like the shackles and stuff, so you avoid any risks. And they pre-pick. They inspected these ropes to make sure there's no frays or tears or any, kind of just a durability issue, fatigue. And then I'm here, let it play a little bit. Here on the roof, setting RTU number 4. And if I want to see if I can go back here, right here, this is what I'm talking about. That boom angle was insane. He's about 6 inches to a foot away off that coping cap and didn't even touch it. And we have the use of our tagline. See, everyone's staying pretty far away and staying visible so they can stay safe and keep their distance. And he's on the radio right now talking to the operator down on the ground level, telling them, okay, they're grabbing taglines. See that double sling right up here with the spreader bar to help distribute that weight. And he's fully extended. This is a pretty gnarly boom angle, but that's what had to be done with what was going on site. Got 2 gentlemen right here pulling tagline. My man Carlos on the radio here. Again, just tell him slow, lower, back towards you, away towards you. And the operator in the cab's communicating to my man Carlos here. Tell him, okay, I'm facing this way, I'm facing that way. All right, I'm coming down, I'm coming up. This is a very cool process to watch because I was thankfully and able enough to watch them do everything on the bottom, safety wise, and pre pick. And then mid pick, I just went up the scaffold and got on the roof and walked around and watched them fly these things. As a GC, you don't have to work; you just have to supervise and quality control. So very cool. Got to take an hour or two and just chill and watch them fly this thing. See, very slow. Slow, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So we're not in a race here, not in a rush. Trying to do this the right way and the safe way. You see Carlos, he's walking out, just hanging out static right here. He's walking around, checking his guys' taglines, helping them out. There's a reason why he's the lead on this one for that Brandt Mechanical and Plumbing Company, because this is his thing. This is what he does. Did a lot of RTU testing with that gentleman right there. And the later months of this project, getting these things trimmed out and turned on. So he was checking, helping him push it a little bit. Sometimes it's as simple as I just give it a little bump this way, a little bump that way. Get your two tagline personnel keeping it taut so it doesn't swing wildly and potentially harm others or damage anything on the roof. See all these posts and stuff I have. Another safety thing I'd like to note is we already had the walk pads installed, which I prefer because then you don't have to worry about anybody slipping and falling in between the RTU and the RTU pedestal. So, and for those who don't know, RTU is rooftop unit, basically an AC. Here we go, getting ready to lower. He's checking, still on that radio. Basically one hand on that radio 24/7 until everybody's done. And everybody that's in this process right here is accounted for. All the Brandt personnel, even though they're just holding taglines, they still have to be documented. And we go all the way up, check out that boom angle and just how much is extended to achieve that angle. Here we have a chain hoist. Just in case in this setting we didn't need to use a chain hoist, but if we were coming through the roof, like when we had to set the stairs in the building, they cut a square hole in the decking. They had the chain hoist coming down with the ball just to take some stress off the crane. By the way, that tree is fake. It's actually a 5G tower. Over here we go. And then just a safety thing, that leading edge is barricaded off from the crane, about 6 feet. We just keep that. The reason we keep that, even though the roof is built up right here, is because it's under 42 inches. So there's a fall hazard. Falling, rotating via your hip down to the ground wouldn't be too fun. So we keep that barricaded off. And then C, they're still holding the taglines, still, on the radio operator telling them, hey, I'm about 2 inches off on the side closest to you. Just give me a little bit more of a drop. Because on the radio here, we have one of the head safety guys coming to make sure everything is well. We were telling them perfect, giving small, minute adjustments. Just because it's for a large scale doesn't mean, hey, I need you to bump it half an inch this way. That we're going to say that. That's going to be set. It's a very exact thing going on here. And then bada bing, bada boom. Like that, RTU number 4 is set. This roof had about 9 of them, and the other building had about 4. So very cool stuff going on over there. And then I just want to get to some conclusion thoughts. My summary. Construction today it's seldomly done without the use of a crane in some shape or form, whether that's just, bringing up materials, hanging tilt wall panels like I showed in the other slide, setting RTUs like the video you just saw, or even pouring concrete like we did a lot of. It's a lot of, I think in our area, in the Austin area, it's definitely a lot of bringing up materials and maybe flying RTUs or chillers, but kind of where the construction boom is happening between like Kyle and San Antonio. It's a lot of tilt wall panels, setting RTUs, pouring concretes, big, really cool construction activities, our heavy reliance of cranes in the commercial and heavy civil construction, plus the skill that's required to be qualified and certified as an operator, a rigger, even a crane driver is the reason why we pay the costs associated with the cranes on our projects, because it's very dangerous in a particular type of work. You have to be on point at all times, otherwise, things can go bad very quickly and very bad. And then our modern day hydraulic crane only exists because of the ancient cranes and like in the Roman and Greek eras and their abilities to hoist up large items for buildings, such as like big building blocks or like decorative columns. Or we talk about like architecture in those times, and I'm just like, how do they do it though? And don't tell me they just cut out the piece of rock was already here and they cut it out. No, they cut it and moved it to where they wanted it, and they didn't move it with just manpower. They built things. So it's very cool to see how evolution to the crane happened from just the simple drawings I showed you on the beginning to what I just showed you now. We have a truck and a crane combined. A little bit of test your knowledge. So the hydraulic crane was invented in what year? 1883. Okay. Critical lift is how much of a crane's carrying capacity? 75% of the crane's carrying capacity. And depending on the company, you might have to have the VP sign off on that lift before you can proceed. And last but very not least, are the persons responsible for rigging, are they documented? Of course they are. They have to be documented. It's a very, dangerous, construction activity. So for sure, everyone's being documented just in case something goes wrong or if something goes well.